You may not have woken up today thinking, I really need a drug testing policy and program for my company. But you may have had several of your employees wake up this morning or even late last night thinking, I certainly hope they don't start drug testing today. Welcome to the National Drug Screening video blog series. My name is Tom Fulmer. I'm the Business Development Manager of National Drug Screening, and I will be host for this series. Joining us today is Mr. Joe Reilly. He's been a leader in the drug testing industry for over 20 years. He's the current president and founder of National Drug Screening. He's also served on the Drug and Alcohol Testing Industry Association Board of Directors, including 4 years as the Board of Directors chairperson. He is also a master trainer with Certified Professional Collector Training Program, and he regularly serves as an expert witness and consultant for companies and organizations across the country. He has also worked with the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, the Florida Office of Drug Control Policy, and many other professional organizations. Please welcome Mr. Joe Reilly. So, most employers don't just wake up and say, hey, I need a drug testing program in place. They usually have some kind of reason for that. And I'm sure you get a lot of calls of people saying, hey, either it's a new company or an existing company wanting to start a drug testing program or have a policy or some combination of. How do you address that when they call and request that?
Well, that's a great question, Tom. We get a lot of calls from companies that just want to start a drug testing program.
Mm-hmm.
So we always want to identify, is this a new program or do they already have a drug testing program? And most importantly, we want to ask them what they're trying to accomplish. Now, if it's a new program, we do want to talk about their drug-free workplace policy. And we want to talk about really, what is it that they want to accomplish and what are their goals in setting up a drug testing program. Now, if they're already doing drug testing, we want to find out, well, why are they calling us? Are they looking for a new vendor? Is there a problem with the existing vendor? So we get to, how are things working now? What are you doing in your drug testing program? And then we offer a better solution.
Right. So that really leads into, once you get down the why, what are the next steps that you take? So once you figure out what their issue is or what they're trying to accomplish, what do you do going forward from there?
Sure, absolutely. So going forward, we identify what type of drug test they're going to do, what panel, because there's lots of different panels. There's a 5-panel, there's a 10-panel, there's a 10-panel with expanded opiates,
Right.
and then there's alcohol testing. Then we identify where they're located. And they might have multiple locations around the country, and we can certainly handle that. Or they might just be a freestanding location, maybe one location, for example, in Orlando, Florida. And we would set them up with a specimen collection facility that's very close by. The specimens would be collected. They would go out to a SAMHSA certified laboratory for the analysis. And then the results would come back to our medical review officer or MRO for the final review and verification. And then the appropriate person at the company would receive the results from us.
Okay. So once they get the program set up or know what they need to do for the program, do you find that they also, they all need a policy, should have a policy, or sometimes should review the policy that they currently have in place?
Yes, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, the drug-free workplace policy is really important. So that's part of the conversation that we have with every single company that calls us. Do you have a drug-free workplace policy? And if you don't, we can work towards helping you to get a written drug-free workplace policy in place. Because the worst thing that can happen is you drug test somebody, they come up positive, and then they say, what do we do now? So they don't have a policy in place to deal with any adverse action that they might want to take.
Right. And so as part of that policy, a lot of times they're asking about random or reasonable suspicion because they had maybe one person that was the reason for the call in the first place. So how does that come into play?
Well, the random testing is a really important part of a drug-free workplace policy. For DOT-required drug testing, random testing is actually required. For non-regulated companies, random testing is an option, but it's the deterrent factor. It's what reminds the employees not to use illicit drugs. So we really encourage employers to always have random testing, even if it's as simple as one person per month or a couple of people per quarter, because random testing is a deterrent to drug use, and it's also an early identifier of drug use where perhaps we can get someone the help they need and they can come back to work and lead a productive lifestyle.
Excellent. And you do find that some people confuse the random with the reasonable suspicion, and how they tie that into the policy at times?
That's a great question, Tom, because we get a lot of calls from companies and they'll say, Mr. Reilly, can you help us? We want to do a random test on Bob tomorrow. He's been acting funny and we've heard some rumors that he might be using drugs. Well, the first thing I need to caution the employer is that that's not a random test.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a reasonable suspicion test if a trained supervisor has seen signs and symptoms that that person may be under the influence of illegal drugs or alcohol while they're working. So if you are going to do a test based on suspicion, call it what it is. It's a reasonable suspicion test. There's nothing random about it.
I think that's important to note. Quite a few of the things that you said here. If you're getting ready to start a drug-free workplace program or policy, make sure you reach out and talk to someone like Joe who can make sure you get things done correctly. So thank you, Joe, for filling in with us today. And make sure you join us next time, where we're going to make sure your business doesn't go up in a puff of smoke. And that's where we're going to be discussing drug-free workplace policies and regulations, and also state laws, and yes, medical marijuana and how that relates to your policy. So make sure you join us next time and check out our other video blogs at www.nationaldrugscreening.com.